Hey guys, this is Billy from AdultCello.com, and today I want to talk about what to do when you feel like you've hit a plateau. So I have 3 tips today for you. I remember when I was starting my cello journey, I was kind of coming into it like, okay, it's just going to be like 1-to-1. So I put in 10 hours of practice this week, and then I'm going to get 10 hours worth of progress, and then you just climb the hill. It doesn't work that way, as you might have noticed. On the bright side, a lot of technique is connected. And so what I've found is that breakthroughs come in bundles because, say I would have a breakthrough in my right hand, and then that comfort transfers into a left hand breakthrough. On the other hand, this is where the dreaded plateau comes in, because sometimes, especially with adult learners, you just have 1 or 2 things that are kind of blocking your progress, but pretty soon it just sort of like blocks progress across the board. And it's very, very slow going until you can, break through that plateau. And just as a reminder, absolutely everyone goes through plateaus. I'm very vocal about this because I think it's important to share. I've been through many plateaus where I felt like truly super frustrated for periods of anywhere from weeks to months. And I've befriended cellists, fellow cellists who are like just top of the food chain players. I've never met a person who hasn't been through 1 or more plateaus in their career. So just if you're currently going through one, just know that you're very much not alone, and that the important thing is to kind of just push through, be patient, be persistent, but don't give up. Tip number 1 is to take a lesson. Okay, so when you can do this or think about doing this, I would say is if you feel like you're just kind of out of ideas, you're not sure what's exactly holding you back, and especially if you've been feeling this way for a number of weeks, I would definitely think about taking a lesson. This is especially true if you're not currently studying with anyone. So if you're just kind of self-guided through this. And it's also true if you are studying with someone. I personally don't think it's wrong just to get another perspective on what's stopping your progress. Having expert insight in anything, especially something as complicated as playing the cello, is going to be a helpful thing. So often what we think we're doing is not actually what we're doing, and having an expert be able to diagnose, okay, well, you told me your bow's straight, but actually the further you get towards the tip, the bow stops being straight. Simple stuff like that, or helping you, okay, you think this is a left-hand issue, but actually it's a coordination problem with your bow hand. As an extension, you can go ahead and eventually try switching teachers. Okay, this is a tiny bit more drastic of a situation than just trying a lesson, but what I would do if you feel like you're a little stuck, I would feel free to go ahead and try 1 or more lessons with a couple different teachers. And this is just feeling things out. You want to see like, okay, does this teacher approach things differently? Oh, that was really exciting. Like this, I felt progress during the lesson. Like this is totally different. If you get that kind of a feeling, then I would go ahead and follow up with a couple more lessons. And if everything is just like green light, this is awesome, I would consider changing. I mean, you only live once, and you gotta get the information you need to get where you want to go with the cello. Let me just explain why I think it's so good to try a lesson with a different teacher and also to change teachers. It's such a complicated relationship between the student and the teacher. You have your personality, you have the way you like to learn, the way you learn best. Do you like to be encouraged? Do you like to be kind of told what to do with a strict teacher who's going to keep you on task? Teachers are just as different as students. And so there's a lot of reasons your current teacher could be maybe not the best fit for you. First off, it could be just that between 2 teachers, this newer teacher just seems to explain things in a way that makes more sense for you. Or it's just a better personality, you feel more comfortable, and so you feel more open, like I'm struggling with this, like this teacher's not judging me at all, they're just here to help. And then finally, the right teacher sometimes at the wrong time is not always the best teacher. This is why I think it's so important to go ahead and try different teachers when you're feeling stuck, because it's not necessarily that you're saying that your current teacher is a bad teacher at all. You're just saying, who's the best person for me now? All right, my second tip is to try a different routine. So this is something I'm just gonna relate to my own personal experience because I'm a routine kind of guy. I would do like a 3-octave scale with a Galamian scale with bowing patterns, and I would set metronome at like 60, speed things up and come back down. And then I would do the exact same vibrato routine, 1-finger scale with vibrato on each finger going up and down. I do the A string, I do the D string, then I would do a shifting exercise with vibrato. I was doing this pretty consistently, and I remember my wife at one point, she was like sharing a wall on the other side. I came in after practice and she's like, you have got to stop doing that every day. And I was like, why? You know, what are you talking about? And we were both laughing, but she's just like, I don't hear you like thinking. I realized it's totally true. I was just sort of on this like autopilot, like I have this really advanced little technical series I go through and I feel really good about myself having done it, but I didn't necessarily do any problem solving or improve anything. I just did this for 30, 45 minutes and it's almost like like I did my laundry, like checked off the list. Great, moving on. So why is it so good to change up the routine? I think as adults versus kids, we have this advanced problem solving capability, and I find with routines that just kind of gets shelved if you're not careful. And it's not even a conscious thing, but just subconsciously it just becomes about filling a prescription more than it does about advancing yourself as a player. Let's say you always start off with a 3-octave scale, because most people start off with scales, or you even start off with open bows. Maybe you're like, okay, this week I'm going to start off, I'm going to pull music from my library that I haven't looked at in a while, and I'm just going to practice sight reading. So just very, very different. I find that doing that kind of a thing really reinvigorates my practice routine. Alternatively, you could stay with that scale routine, but this time you say, okay, this week when I play the scale routine, I'm going to listen for my bow changes as carefully as possible. It'll feel like a totally different exercise. Okay, so you can take even the same thing you're working on. This takes a little more focus, I think, to not slip into your old habit. But if you can do that, just focus laser-like on one thing that you've been ignoring during that routine, and that will totally reinvigorate the process. And finally, number 3 tip for breaking through a plateau is to shift your focus. So I'll just relate my story with vibrato because I think it is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. For so long, I was struggling with my vibrato, especially in certain hand positions, like first position. I would just get this hitch. And I would, like, if I tried to play something, especially like kind of forte, loud sound, I'd get this hitch and I'd have to like work my way through it, and then eventually my vibrato would open up. I spent so much time focusing on the finger exercises I'd been taught and building flexibility and all these things. Finally, I realized in a lesson that it was my elbow was kind of held way too stiff, and so my whole arm was way too stiff. And no matter how flexible I got my finger, I was going to have a really kind of ugly start to my vibrato until I fixed my elbow. Okay, that's what I'm talking about with a shift of focus, because I could have spent years focused on my finger because that's what I thought the problem was. Even without a lesson, if I had just shifted my focus to other body parts on my own, I think eventually I would have noticed, like my elbow is really rigid right now, and everything's like my biceps kind of flexed, like everything's way too tight. When you think about cello techniques such as vibrato or certain bow techniques, everything's kind of connected. And so you have to remember that, it's easy to fixate on the part that seems to be moving the most. For example, in vibrato would be like the finger joint. And then suddenly you forget that the finger joint is connected to the rest of the finger, to the top of the hand, forearm, the elbow, the shoulder, and all of those body parts are going to be part of the process of vibrato. So being able to shift your focus and not just kind of zero in on one single body part is very important. All right, so there's 3 tips on how to break through the plateau you may or may not be facing right now. Again, please just remember that everyone has plateaus, and so just stay strong and you will get to the other side of it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. See you next time.